I'm here today because I've seen a lot of reports coming out about other solar companies misleading people. So what I wanted to do was sponsor this event to put CSE and CAC in front of you good folks so you can understand what your options truly are when it comes to adopting renewable energy. How many people have ever watched Turco Files? You seen what he's been saying about solar companies ripping people off? We need to end that, and that's why I'm here today, so that you people have the information you need to make an educated decision and move forward and help these other folks revolutionize the way we generate electricity in this region, because we need to do that. I'm also excited to share with you some new technology that's now on the market that's going to transform how you go solar in the future. So, promise I'm going to make to you. We've sold over 6,000 systems. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm going to teach you, and you're going to decide whether it makes sense for you. We've done 60 million watts, which is the equivalent of a peaker power plant that we removed from the grid. So we've done a lot of solar. We're one of only 6 companies in the region, or I'm sorry, in the nation, that has achieved a NABCEP accreditation. NABCEP accreditation means that we've been evaluated by a third party and determined that we do things a way so that people realize their return on investment rather than the companies that go out and rip people off. That's not what we're into. And we've done a lot of installations. One thing that you might not know is above your roof right now are the solar panels that we installed. This facility is powered by Sullivan Solar Power. So we're going to go about how it works. We're going to teach you about the new technology, financing option, and available incentives. First off, solar panels, or solar modules, as I call them. Pretty robust technology. It's not new. It's been around since 1954. It's made of solar cells and tempered glass. This is rated for a golf ball size hail. When's the last time you saw a golf ball size hail in San Diego? So yeah, it's been a while. And I don't know when that was. I'm glad I wasn't there. 25-year warranty. It's got no moving parts. It's completely encapsulated. Robust, solid technology. And you have a 25-year warranty. So a little bit about modules. There's a misconception that modules are like computers and cell phones, that the cell phone or the module of today, solar panel of today, is going to be antiquated tomorrow. That's simply not the case. Silicon solar modules, when they were first made commercially viable in the United States, we did that, they were 6% efficient. 62 years later, we're 21% efficient. So when you take that historic trend, the theoretical maximum efficiency of a solar panel will be realized in about 21 more years. So if you go solar today, you don't need to worry about your technology being outdated tomorrow. The other major part of a solar power system is the inverter. And this is something I'm very excited, this inverter in particular, that I'm going to share about later, what it can do. But the inverter primarily turns DC power, which is what the solar module makes, into AC power. And that's what your house runs on. So this is what you need to convert solar power into household power. This inverter has a 25-year warranty and has battery storage capability, which you're going to need in the future. And I'll explain about that later. The other part of a solar system solar power system that's very important is monitoring. So if you're going to invest in solar, you need to know that this system is going to perform. And if it's not performing as promised, you're not going to realize your return on investment. So the monitoring allows companies like mine to see what your system is doing real time through an internet connection. And if something does go wrong, we get alerted so we can go out and fix it before you even know that it went down. Now here's the next big deal. This box, this is what I'm really excited about. This box is a giant battery. Okay, this is the same battery that is installed in the Chevy Volt, LG Chem technology, all right? 110,000 Chevy Volts across the world, no issues. So this is solid, proven technology. I wouldn't bring it to you if it was not. It has a 15-year lifespan with a 10-year warranty. This battery has the capacity to hold 10 kilowatt hours of energy, which is roughly 1/3 of what a typical solar producer needs on a daily basis. But we'll go into the details on that later. When you tie it all together, you've got solar panels on your roof that goes down to your inverter. Does the pointer work? Can you guys even see this? Okay. So you got your solar panels here. They're bolted to your roof, and I'll go into that a little bit later. Goes down to your inverter, converts it from DC to AC. We have a monitoring box to make sure that we can keep track of it. If you have a battery installed, the battery would go right next to your inverter. And the monitoring, you can look at it and show off to everybody, hey, look at my solar power, where's yours? And when you're exporting power to the grid, it goes out to the grid and helps SDG&E look better in the public eye, which is good for them. So let's talk about system design. Regardless of the parts and pieces, how's it going to work in your house? Well, the most common application is a rooftop application, right? That's what you're used to, what you think of when you think of solar. Whether you have a tile roof or an asphalt shingle roof, or if you have an Adobe-style home, there's an application that will work. But some people just don't want to put solar panels on their roof. Like this facility has a ground-mounted system. It happens to be a carport. But in a residential application, if somebody has a large yard, typically in East County, San Diego, we'll put a ground-mounted system in. We can tilt the array at the optimal tilt and orient it the right way so that it makes the most amount of energy. And then when you want to get really creative, like Mr. Gilmore did in Del Mar, he had a really strange roof, this radius roof here. You couldn't put solar panels on it. So we built a shade structure and then put solar panels on the roof. His guests don't even know it's a power plant. They just think it's a really cool shade structure. So this is one of my favorite installations. Regardless of roof-mounted, ground-mounted, super fancy shade structure, there are three things that need to be taken into account. The geographic orientation, that's your tilt to the sunlight and whether you're facing north, south, east, or west. There is whether or not you go flat on the roof surface. If you have a hip roof with a slight angle on it, do you go with the contour or the slope of the roof, or do you jack it up? Some companies will jack it up. It doesn't look good, so we don't do that. And how much shade is there on your property? We went out to a customer's house, not our customer. This system was basically in a forest. They had trees all around it, and he was told this is going to produce a lot of energy for you and reduce your bill by a certain percentage. Well, it's solar power, it's not shade power, so that clearly wasn't going to work out. So we did an evaluation. You do a sometric sun eye. It's a device that takes a fisheye picture of the horizon where you intend to put your solar panels, and that tells you if that power pole a quarter-mile away is going to impact your production, or if the next-door neighbor's tree is going to impact your production. We take that all into account when determining what the system's going to produce, energy-wise, because that's going to dictate how much money you're going to save. It all matters. So briefly on what I've just talked about, I can take about 5 questions because I do have to speed to Rancho Bernardo here momentarily. Yes, sir.
Back in 2012, 2013, I looked into the battery option under the SGIP program.
Right.
But what I was told is that in putting that battery system in my garage, the only time I could access that power is when there was a power failure on the grid. And that was the only time that I could access that. So that meant I would get maybe an hour's worth of use every 3 years out of that system. Is that still the case?
No. And I'm going to cover SGIP, Self-Generation Incentive Program, that's going to open up in a couple months in my next part of the deck.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How inefficient is west-facing versus south-facing?
West-facing versus south-facing, that's a great question. It's roughly 8 to 10%. So a south-facing system, and I apologize for having blown over this. South-facing system is ideal, that's best, tilted at 17 degrees for annual production in San Diego. That's optimal, but not required. East and west is good, but you take about 8 to 10% hit on annual production per kilowatt installed. What we do is we look at, when we're done with the design, we say this is the size system we need to, or when we design, it's designed to the usage of the home using historic 20-year weather patterns so that the kilowatt hours of the system we produce match what you consume. And that east, west, or south would be taken into account in the design considerations. Sir?
Kind of related to that, how often or what percent of your system have solar panels on facing in 2 directions? And if you do, how does your system have to be designed to handle that?
That's a great question. So one roof surface oftentimes, we can't speak to the percentage, one roof surface oftentimes is not large enough for 100% bill offset. So we'll go on an east-facing roof and a south-facing roof, or south and west, or just east and west. What we won't do is we won't face the system north. What side of the tree does the moss grow on in a forest? Some of my colleagues haven't learned that lesson, so they'll never make it out of the forest.
So what do you have to do in order to have two facing directions? You need two inverters?
In the past, you needed two inverters because an inverter, inside of the inverter, the technology behind an inverter has maximum power point tracking where it takes the input from the array and it locks in the array at its maximum power point to increase the harvest of that system. In the past, each inverter had one maximum power point tracker, and if you had two arrays, two different directions, it would get confused and not know which one to lock in. Now, inverters of today have multiple maximum power point tracking capability, so a single inverter can handle two arrays. I have to move on in the interest of time, and any questions I don't get to, my colleagues are here and they'll answer them for you at the end of the presentation. Okay, so solar is great for the world. I think we all agree with that, right? But does it make any sense financially? Well, 100,000 people in San Diego think so. This is the trend since Sullivan Solar Power came into being in 2004. There's a couple hundred systems on SDG&E's grid. 2016, 100,000. That's a lot of solar power out there, and that's a good thing. So why is it growing? Well, a similar trend with electricity rates. Over the past few years, it's been going up pretty exponentially. This is nationwide trends. This is from the Department of Energy. I didn't make this stuff up. And in California, like everything, we pay a premium for everything we get. So our rates are actually going up higher over the past few years, and there's been a lot of complaints about how the utilities are behaving as a result. So the typical solar customer, and typical solar customer is what we're talking about here, has a bill of around $300 under the new rates that we have. That's pretty expensive to power your house. Assuming that the national average rate of escalation is 6%, this person is going to spend $146,000 for 20 years worth of energy. That's nuts. Not you guys. Unless you have solar. And what do you have to show for it at the end of that 20 years? Another bill next month. Okay, so to understand rates, we need to understand how they're structured. There's two types of rates. What most everyone in this room is currently on a tiered rate with SDG&E. That is, the more you use in a given month, the more they're going to charge you. They're going to move you to time of use rates. That's coming. That is, when you use, the more they charge you. So regardless, they have a way to charge you more. Here's what it looks like under tiers. You use 1 kilowatt hour, 1 unit of energy on a monthly basis, up to and including 435 kilowatt hours on a monthly basis. Your electricity rate is 20 cents per kilowatt hour. And if you go above 435, you go into the next bucket, 436 and up, they do this little thing right here where they double your rate. I don't know if the kilowatt hour at 436 is twice as expensive to produce as the one at 435, but they say it is, so they're going to charge you that much. Pretty sweet deal for the utility. Now, the way that looks on your bill, this isn't how your bill looks, but breaking it down, tier 1 usage at 20 cents, 435 kilowatt hours is going to cost you $87. For almost the same amount of energy, just slightly more, in tier 2, that costs you $237. The term I typically use is highway robbery. This is a typical San Diego using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month. Now, we put in solar, and this is why everyone's going solar. That becomes 0. It's not as simple as I'm making it look, but this becomes 0, and you end up with a $10 meter fee, the pleasure of having connection to the grid. That's reasonable, I think. Now, so there's the bill savings. Pretty straightforward. You eliminate your bill. You also get a federal tax credit. So it may sound too good to be true. You put solar on your roof, you eliminate your bill, and you wipe out a huge portion of your taxes to the IRS. But it's true. 30% of the cost of your system will be covered by a federal tax credit. So if you have a $24,000 system, you're going to get a tax credit of about $8,000. And a tax credit is not to be confused with a write-off. So if at the end of the year you owe the IRS $10,000 and you have an $8,000 tax credit because you went solar this year, then you wipe out $8,000 of it and you remaining $2,000 bill to the IRS. Conversely, if you have an $8,000 bill and your liability is only $6,000, you're going to wipe out your tax bill and you have a $2,000 credit to carry forward to the next year. So a pretty good deal. This is scheduled to decline in 2020 and then in 2021. So it's already scheduled to sunset. The way you save money on your bill is what Carrie said earlier, is net energy metering. Instead of paying a bill every month, you get a monthly statement from SDG&E, and you're on an annual billing cycle. And the reason for that is some months you're going to produce more than others, and you're going to consume more than others. And so what they do is they take the total production, the total consumption, they net it, hence the term net metering, and they bill you for the difference. Today, when you use energy, as opposed to when people went solar before, when you use energy is going to matter significantly as to what your savings really are, and we're going to go into that in detail here in a minute. So, what's this all cost? $24,000 system, tax credit, $23,000 system, tax credit of $7,000, your net system cost would be $16,000. So you wiped out your bill, but you got the $16,000 amount that you need to come up with. How are you going to do that? How are you going to pay for it? You got three choices. You can pay cash. Cash is king with any transaction because it's the best return on your investment. But if you don't want to spend that money, and I would advise that you don't, keep your money, you can do a lease or a loan. We're going to get into these here in a moment. Cash, you come up with $23,000 out of pocket. You get your tax credit the year after you install your system. Your net system cost being $16,000, payback period is 3.5 years. Pretty sweet deal. You spend that much money on a car, $23,000, the second you drive off the lot, that's what it's worth. So, good investment, right? Rate of return is 29%, and your 20-year savings is $130,000. So essentially, you spend $16,000 now to get $130,000 worth of energy. Hence why there's 100,000 people who have gone solar. If you don't want to spend the money, and you can't get the tax credit for some reason, then you can do a lease. Third party owns the system and sells you the energy that the system is providing to your house at a rate that's lower than SDG&E today. Structure financially. You make a monthly payment of $170 instead of the $320 you're giving to SDG&E, and you're using clean energy. 20 years later, you can have it ripped off your roof, or upgrade your system, or just renew the lease. This is good for people who can't get the tax credit and don't want to spend the money. But if you want to finance a system, this is what you do. This is what I would do for my home. No money out of pocket. You still get the tax credit because you're the owner. Your monthly payment is $157, so it's cheaper than a lease. It's only for 12 years, and then you own the system outright. And these systems have a 25-year warranty period, so halfway through the warranty period, you own the system. And then you save $115,000 when you take into account all incentives and costs. Comparing these side by side, pretty straightforward. I think the options, it speaks for itself. You do cash. If you have it, it's the best return on investment, most savings over the lifetime. The lease is good if you want something simple and don't want to worry about anything, but you're beholden to a bank for 20 years. And I mean, this is a longer commitment than some people stay married, so that's a little scary. And your savings are reduced pretty substantially. The loan, no money out of pocket, $157, 12-year term, still get the tax credit, still save heaps of money. That's why I would recommend it, but it's up to you. So, but regardless, there's two options here for energy. Keep doing this, and this is what your bill looks like in 20 years. Or lock in your payments now, and you're done after 12. Regardless of how you finance your system, you're going to save money, provided your system is installed correctly and produces what it's supposed to produce. So is this going to stay like this? Do you think SDG&E likes this story? Absolutely not. They have this great idea to put every one of you on time of use rate windows. Do you guys remember the flex alert thing from a few years ago? Just conserve, move the energy towards the end of the day. It's a great racket. Let me get into this. So today's time of use windows, this is a typical load profile. Anyone look at their smart meter data ever? If you have, this would look familiar. This is what it's modeled after, okay? This represents consumption in hourly periods. So off-peak time of use window is basically when everyone's asleep. Semi-peak is when everybody's waking up. On-peak is the middle of the day till the sun sets. And then semi-peak comes back in the evening, okay? The cost of energy is down here on the bottom. On-peak, super expensive energy. It's almost 50 cents a kilowatt hour. Semi-peak's half of that, and then nighttime energy, off-peak is slightly less. That's today. Time of use windows. This is where everybody's going to go to by 2019. Now, this is before somebody goes solar. Now you've put in a solar power system, you kind of flip the script on them a little bit. You say, all right, SDG&E, I'm going to put power on the grid when you're charging me the most. And you're going to get credits at 50 cents a kilowatt hour. This is what the meter looks like. You're exporting in this scenario in the middle. You're exporting when energy, a little bit when energy is 25 cents, and the vast majority of the energy you're exporting is 50 cents or 49 cents a kilowatt hour. Awesome, right? Because at nighttime when you're using energy, the solar power system's asleep. It's solar power, not night power. The solar power system's asleep. You're using energy at 25 cents, so you're selling at 50. You're buying at 25. Bitchin'. That's awesome. How many people think SDG&E is going to allow that to keep on going? No, they're not. They're a business. They got to make money. They just make too much. This is what they're going to do. The rate filing has already been submitted to the Public Utilities Commission. They said, hey, everybody, conserve energy during the day, use energy at night. So we all did it. Now we're all right here, and so they're saying, well, all your usage is at nighttime, so that's our on-peak window, so we need to raise the rates there. This is what they're doing. So if you're a solar producer, that kind of sucks. And the reason being, you're exporting now when it's 25 cents, and you're using when it's 50 cents. So you have to produce 2 units of energy for 1 unit at night. That's not a good deal anymore, and SDG&E knows that. They are very smart. But we're smarter than they are. So this is what we're going to do. This is where my friend right here comes into play. When your solar power system's producing, from early in the morning, 6:30, till the evening, 5, the first order of business is we're going to make you invisible to the grid. We're going to put energy into this box. Think of this like a truck. We're going to load it up in the morning with your solar power because they're not compensating you adequately. They're only going to give you 25 cents if you put it out on the grid. That's why you're not seeing anything leave the house right here. The system's on, but it's going into the battery. Once the battery's full, right around 11, we start dumping energy into the grid and you're getting credits on your SDG&E bill. But that's only at 25 cents, okay? Still attractive, but not as attractive as this is. Then SDG&E says, hey, it's on peak, we're going to charge you more. The inverter automatically is programmed to know when the on-peak windows are. We can change this inverter's on-peak windows from our office. So we can say, boop, and it moves it to later in the day. So your battery starts discharging, and SDG&E gets really sad because they're not able to charge you 50 cents a kilowatt hour, right? That discharge carries through into the nighttime till when you start going to sleep. And then you start pulling energy from the grid when the battery's discharged right around here. This is solar of tomorrow, today. This is what we have available to us. This is what I'm really, really excited about. Because now I can tell all my customers, you can tell SDG&E goodbye, really tell them goodbye. So what's this cost, this little box? We'll get into that here in a minute. So we're all going to move to time of use. So when you use energy matters, and that needs to be taken into account when you're evaluating whether solar makes sense for you or not. Solar customers, you have to go to time of use eventually. Right now, the windows that are really attractive You get locked into those windows for 5 years because SDG&E is still doing their rate proceeding, so it's a 5-year grandfathering on the really juicy windows. But that's going to flip in 5 years if you go solar. So we put in a battery. Guess what? State of California is a big fan of self-generation. So they know that you need batteries because of what the utilities are doing. So they're going to give you an incentive to do it so you can load shift. This battery installed is $6,000. The incentive for it is $5,000 when the program opens up. Pretty sweet deal. Here's the catch. There's not a lot of money there. There's going to be a mad dash to absorb all this money from the companies that have already been putting in batteries. All right? So if you're serious about doing this and you want a battery and you don't want to pay for it, you go solar now, and then when the program opens up in April, May, we're going to submit the application on your behalf and secure the money on your behalf. This is a needed solution for 2.0 customers. For those who went solar under net metering 1, many of you, you don't need this because you're locked into 20-year rates. All right, so we're going to leave that alone. I'm not going to go into the weeds there. Here's the story. You go solar now, get 5 years of the super juicy rates, and then you're going to get moved to nighttime, which means you need a battery. But right now, there's an incentive available. So maybe you get the battery now in anticipation of the future. This battery system makes you future-proof. So SDG&E can go tinker with rates all day, all night, all year. You don't care. You don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. And I've got 6,000 customers I need to look out for because we have the solution. That's the good news. And that transforms the grid. The story is over for the utility companies. We have the technologies. They can do whatever they want at the PUC. We're going to win. So we can do this. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Tara Kelly, and I have to run up to Rancho Bernardo before I have to present up there. Thank you.